Hello and welcome to a crash course in PHP strings. In this tutorial I'm going to talk about strings, string manipulation in PHP, as well as a quick overview of PHP itself and how to get PHP running and working. So the first thing I'm going to say is how we actually start PHP, and to do that we need to open a PHP tag, and we do that like this. So it's question mark and then PHP. Now we can, if we wish, we can also have a capitalized PHP, but what I would say, what I would definitely recommend and advise is that you're consistent throughout your PHP files. So don't have uppercase and don't have lowercase mixed together. Keep it as one. I prefer lowercase because it's just, easier to read, I find. Also, you don't need to close the PHP tag. So for example, in certain languages like say HTML, so hypertext markup language, you would close your tag. So for example, if you were to do an A tag, you might do A, and then you would close that down with an A as well. You don't need to do that in PHP. In fact, it's I advise against it, because if you were to close it, you would do something like this. Now, that's all well and good, but you can get into difficulty, especially when you're using sessions and where you have empty lines at the end of the file. You might run into problems where the header has already been set, and so basically my advice is, if you've got a single PHP file that holds, say, your functions. For example, if you were to build a WordPress site, you would have a single functions file perhaps, or if you were creating a selection of classes, you had a couple of classes, perhaps you would have a class per file, and then you would call the file name the class perhaps. And in doing so, you don't need to break off PHP. You can just open it up like so, and it knows that it's running PHP, so it knows that it can close it itself. So there's no need to close PHP. Just keep it open as is. Okay, so next we're going to talk about the variables and creating variables, as well as assigning variables string values. So the first thing we need to do is actually create ourselves a variable. Now we do that by having a dollar symbol at the start. That denotes that we're going to create a variable. We need to give the variable a name, and the name we're going to give it in this example is just temp. Now we need to add a space and then an equal sign, because we're going to equate the temp variable to a value. So we're saying temp is equal to a value. Now we're going to use strings in this tutorial. This tutorial is going to focus on strings in PHP. Now, when we create a string, we can use either a single quote or a double quote. The string itself is encapsulated in these quotes, but what we can't do is we can't mix the quotes. We can't have the start of the string being a single quote and the end of the string being a double quote. So what we must do is have some quotes here, and then also we end the statement by ending it on a semicolon like so. So in these quotes we have the value that we want to equate the temp variable to. In this case we're just going to call it test. So here, if I was to save the file, what we're doing here is we have the variable called temp, and you can tell it's a variable because it starts with the dollar sign, then a space, then an equal symbol, and then another space, and then the string. Now, like I said, we can actually have this in single quotes, like so, or we can go back and have them as double quotes. I'm just going to put them in double quotes for now. Now, if I was to come down here, let's just save that file. If I was to come down here and then run this file, php -f, because it's a file, and then tutorial1, it doesn't actually do anything. It's just running the file. It's not actually printing anything out to the screen. That's because we haven't actually told the PHP file to actually do anything with that. We're just assigning the variable value of test to the variable temp. In order to print it out to the screen, we need to either run print or an echo. Now I'm just going to use echo for now. So echo, and then we give it the variable that we want to echo out. So this is going to return some standard output when we run it. So I'm just going to do that. Now, just to explain, echo is a internal PHP call that we can use that's going to print something out to the screen. We're going to print out the variable value of temp, which in this case would be test. And again, we end the statement using the semicolon, like so. If we were to remove this semicolon and hit save, you can see that we've popped up an error here. If I was to hover over it, we have an unexpected syntax error, and it gives some expected bits and pieces, and one of them is the semicolon. So let's put that back and then hit save. Okay, so let's run this file then, and we should return the word test in this terminal bit here. Let's do that. So PHP -f again, and then tutorial1, and then let's run that, and we can see yeah, we can see here that we have the word test. Now notice it's pretty wrapped around, it's pretty jumbled in the command prompt here. That's because we haven't actually given any new lines. We haven't designated any new lines, and let's go and do that now. So let's add a new line before and after the word test. Now we do that using the \n, and we don't need to have any spaces between the new line \n or the value that we wish to print out. So let's just do that \n here. So that's going to put it at the end, or sorry, at the start, and then \n here, and that's going to put it at the end. So let's just save that now, and then do another terminal command to run that file, and we can see now that we have a new line at the start because there's nothing here, and then it's put the command on a second line, a new line under here. So the new line, this one here, is happening because of that -n, and then the fact that this is underneath and not by the side of it, you know, buttied up together, is because of that new line here. So what I'm going to do is add a second new line here at the end of the variable, just to give us a little bit more room. So let's just run that, and that we can now see that the value test is between two blank lines, and that's exactly what we're after. Now beforehand, let me just clear that down. Before, I mentioned that we can use single quotes as well as double quotes, and that's perfectly true. However, the behavior of single quotes is slightly different to the behavior of double quotes, especially when using new lines like this. Let me just show you. So let's just remove that and replace this with a single quote, like so. Let's save that down. That's good. And then let's run that file again. Now notice that we're actually printing out \n test all on one line. So the \n is not actually converting into a blank line, a new line, some white space. We're actually printing it out in its raw form. So please note there is a behavioral difference between single quotes and double quotes. I'm just going to put this back to double quotes for now because that's easier to use. Okay, so that's creating new lines, and that's creating strings, and I've also talked about the different quoting behaviors. Now we're going to look at joining strings together. So what I would like to do is create some variables called first name, and I'm just going to equal that to a blank string for now, and then last name, again put that to blank string, and then I'm going to echo out full name. Now I'm going to just create full name up here. We're going to call this full name, and we're just going to put that to a blank string too. So what I would like to do is have a first name and a last name, and then I would like to have a full name, and a full name will be the joining of the first name and the last name together. So let's just enter in some values. So the first name, I'll just use my name for now, so Peter, and then Fisher. Okay, excuse me. So how do we join these together? Now we use something called concatenation in PHP or in any programming language, and that is the joining of strings, the gluing of strings together to make a single string. So essentially here we have three variables: first name, last name, and full name. The full name is the concatenation of the first name and the last name together, and then we're going to echo it out here. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is remove the blank, the empty string, and we're going to say it's the first name. So full name is equal to first name. Next we need to add in a period, so space and then period, and then this denotes that this is going to, we're going to concat the first name variable to something here. So we need to concat that to the last name, like so. So here we're not saying that first name is that plus last name, because that's a addition. We're not doing any math here. We're just doing a concatenation. So it's first name period last name. So we're saying that the full name equates to the first name as well as the last name in a concatenated string. Okay, so the full name is going to be a concatenated string of the first name and last name, and then we're echoing it out here. So we should see Peter Fisher in one string. Let's run that now. So let's just save that, clear this down so we can have some room, and then run the file again. Now notice that we have Peter Fisher all in one here. So let's add some space, some new lines like we did before. Now what we can do is add one to the end, and again what we're going to do is concatenate the value. So let's add a space and then a period, and then add a new string which has \n. Let's save that and run the file again. Okay, so now we can see that we now have that as a new line, and again I'm going to put some new lines at the start and at the end just so we have a bit more room to play with. So I'm going to create another string and concat that to the first name. So string \n, that's, so we're going to start with a new line, then we're going to concat that to the first name, and then we're going to concat that to the last name and concat that to a new line, and I'm also going to add another one in here, so it should be nice and positioned nicely in the middle, like so. Peter Fisher. Now notice this is all in one string. There's no space in between the first and last names. So what I'm going to do is, like we've done before, I'm going to create a new string and concat that in between, so like so, but this time it's going to have a bit of white space in, so I'm just going to press enter and create some white space. So let's clear the screen down and then run that file again. Okay, that's exactly what we need: Peter space and then Fisher. Now I'm going to add something else here. I'm actually going to create a integer value, so let's do age, and that's going to equal to 32. So notice that this isn't in any kind of quotes or anything. This is just an integer of 32, which equals the age. So the next thing I'm going to do is just change these values. So full name, I'm going to now change to profile, and we're going to echo out profile. And I wish to add my age to this. So the first thing I'm going to do is the first thing I'm going to do is add a bit of a string that says that this is the full name, and what I can do is just put it in this bit here. So let's say full name, and then I'm just going to do that for some just as display. So let's just run that, see what we have already. That's great. So full name is equal to you. I'm just going to put that in just to give us a little bit more room to play with. There we go. Full name is equal to Peter Fisher. That's fine. Now what I would like to do is underneath here is have my age. Now to do that, what we need to do is have we need to concat age to profile. So there's a couple of ways we can do this. Yes, we could do this. We could say that we're going to concat this to a string, and we're going to call this age, which has we're going to concat that to the age variable. Now we could do that. That's perfectly fine. Let's clear the screen and then run that, and we can see that we have the age like so. And just to make it a little bit more readable, we're going to add a new line like so. We can do that, that's perfectly fine, but notice that this line here is getting longer and longer and longer, and it's becoming harder and harder to read because we have these new lines, these backslash ends at different points. So what we can do is actually concat the variable itself. So I'll just demonstrate how we do that. So let's remove this. And then, so I'm going to bring it back to how it was. So let's just clear the screen down and then run this again. So that's how it was. And now we need age under here, but we want to do it in such a way that's easier for other programmers to read. So what we would do is run profile again, but this time we're going to do a period and an equal sign together. And then we're going to say that age, oops, let me lowercase that, age colon, and then concat that to the age, and then we're going to give it some new lines like so. Oops. And then save this. Okay, let's run that and see what happens. Okay, excellent. So we have the full name and then the age. Now let's just explain what I've done. So we've created a variable called profile. We've assigned it to this string here, and we've concatenated that string to that value, the first name, and then concatenated that to a blank space, and then concatenated this to the last name, and finally concatenated that to this string of new lines. So that we've assigned profile that value, that whole value here. Now we've then said profile is a concatenation of profile, and that is this period here. And we're saying that profile, basically what we're doing is saying profile equals profile plus age is equal to 32, and then this string. If I was to remove that period sign here, what we're doing is if I remove the period symbol here, we're simply overwriting the value of profile to be age. If I was to run this, we should just get age. That we do. So if I add this in here, the period, and then run that again, we can see that we have the full profile, the full name and the age. And it's because of this period here, because we're concatenating the profile variable to itself, or we're starting with itself, and then we're concatenating this value, this string value. And to make it look even better, what we can do is do profile is equal to, and then we're just going to do new line, so we don't need that, and then we're going to concatenate new line, like that, and then let's just yeah, that's fine. And then the next thing I want to do is I'm going to add a title. So I'm just going to do title is equal to, and then Mr. like so. Now what I've done is I've added this new variable title here, and I would like to add it into the full name. So what I would do is just do a title and then concat that again with some empty space and save that. So we're starting here with the profile of just a new line, that's fine, and then we're going to concat the new line with this one here to this string, and then profile to this string. Now notice that that we've got some duplication here. We have new line and new line. So what we could do is, if this was to be a big profile, and each sentence or each part finishes with two new lines, we could just do NB is equal to new line, and then what we can do is copy that and then paste that onto here, oops, like so, and then paste that onto here. So now every time we have a new row that we want two new lines to, we can just concat the NB variable. So let's just run that. Let's just clear the screen and then run that again. Okay, that's great. So now we have the title in here and we have two new lines. So the next thing I'm going to do is a telephone. So let's just do telephone, and we're going to just add a string of telephone numbers. So we're going to start with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, or something like that. Whatever. It's just a bunch of numbers, and then we can do profile, concat that to telephone, and then like that, so, and then telephone as the variable, and then we're gonna also concat that to new line, NB. So let's run that and see what we've got. Let's clear the screen and then run that. So now we have the telephone number as well. So that's a brief crash course into strings and concatenation in PHP. I've demonstrated how we can concatenate the strings together, stick strings to strings to make a longer string, as well as the new lines, breaking lines up, and so forth, differences between single and double quotes. If you've got any comments or questions, then please put them in the comments section below. You can follow me on Twitter. My Twitter handle is @PFWD. Like the video if you found this helpful, and please do share it around if you think that others may find it useful. Thanks again for watching.